Sports are part of people's lives and are played, watched and covered all over the world 24/7, 365 days a year, from football to tennis to golf and basketball. In early 2020, in Wuhan, China, there was a deadly outbreak of coronavirus, or commonly referred to as COVID-19, which brought sport and the world to a halt. Euro 2020 and the Olympics were moved to 2021, the Premier League was postponed for months, and League One and below were completely cancelled. The disease has had a devastating effect on companies across the country, and especially the sports data department at PA Media, the company I work for. We were made to work from home, then 10 out of the 13 staff were put on furlough. In this video, I speak to my colleagues to see how the epidemic has affected the way they work, how sports are being covered, and what long-term effects COVID-19 has had on the company.
Commercially speaking, a huge impact on the company. A lot of our clients are newspapers, print media, and so forth, who rely heavily on advertising income. Now, obviously, when we went into lockdown, people weren't going out and buying newspapers, so basically a lot of the advertising agencies pulled the plug, and that was therefore cut a lot of the revenue to these print media clients, who ultimately wanted to see savings downstream. So they approached PA and said, look, we can't afford to pay you, sort of thing. How can we get around this? So I believe the company's worked with them all and has worked towards giving them credits. So on a bigger scale, on a company-wide scale, it's obviously impacted us massively, as it has most industries, I think. There's a few industries that have probably benefited, like deliveries and all that kind of stuff, and logistics and whatnot. On a bigger scale, obviously then that gets passed down through from the top to the bottom through the company, and then each department has its own responsibilities to make sure that there is a continuity in place, a business continuity in place. Talking from a purely sports data perspective, as you well know, Dan, within a matter of days, we were told to uproot and go and work from home. We did that very well as a department. It was challenging. Some people are more set up to work from home than others. So some people might live alone, so they don't have families or whatnot, and so forth, interrupting them, so to speak. So we did that, we turned that around, and then, as you well know, shortly after that, so again, probably within the space of another couple of weeks, I was instructed as part of my role to furlough our team, first of all, to come forward with a plan to see how we can continue on skeletal staff without impacting our services. So from a team of 13 full-time staff, I think we furloughed all but 3 over the course of the time since back in, I think it was April the 1st when this all started. We've since brought another 4 members of the team back as sport starts to pick up again and our services and our production line starts to increase again. Obviously, as well as the furloughing of the full-time staff, we have a team of casual staff who support our live operation. They've essentially all been furloughed. We have a team of correspondents who support some of our football coverage. They go to the grounds. They've not been used. They're freelancers. So it's had a really huge impact, really. I think we've done, as a department, we've done really well. We've talked briefly before we started this about the things that we've done to look at how we can manage our mental health and remain positive. And we set up, as you took part in quite a few. We did quizzes out of hours on a Wednesday evening where we invited all of the team. It wasn't compulsory, but it was good to get everyone on Zoom and see everyone's faces and talk about what we've been up to and how we're managing our mental health and how we're staying positive, and a lot of people getting out and doing exercises and whatnot.
Yeah, I think obviously your mental well-being is kind of key in these situations. You've got to try and just not get bogged down with sitting in front of your computer for 8 hours solid a day. I think because we've reduced our workforce to 3 people, what we've kind of had to do is show quite a lot of flexibility within the team. So we've probably been more productive as a result of that, because we have obviously been flexible in our working hours. So we're working when we're actually needed to be actually doing something productive. So there's been a lot less downtime within the team. In terms of kind of how that then factors into mental well-being, obviously you can tie that in with doing some exercise. So for example, I might get up in the morning, log on, do any bits I've got to do, and then I might go for a run for an hour, do some exercise, which obviously I couldn't do if I was in the office. So it's been beneficial kind of in that way. Also, it's helped that the weather's been pretty good.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you're able to, I've got a laptop, so I've been able to work outside on occasions when the weather's been nice, which obviously helps your mental well-being as well. It's better than really being stuck in an office. On the flip side of that, obviously, you do kind of miss the social element of being in the office. You don't get to sit down and have a chat with your work colleagues, or go and have a coffee with somebody. Obviously, as you well know, our floor is quite busy. There's quite a lot of people who work up there, so there's interaction with other departments. So that you do kind of miss that kind of interaction with other people and the social side. So at the minute, as I said, there are people working in the office. So before you return to the office, it's kind of gets assessed by the company. So there's a business risk assessment that you have to go through as an individual before you're allowed to go back into the office, which is obviously to assess your health, your well-being, make sure you're actually fit to return to the office. You're not kind of got any symptoms of coronavirus or anything like that. But also, the policy of the company is that you're only to return to the office if it's actually essential. I think that we've taken quite a lot out of this in terms of realizing that actually people working from home is probably quite a good thing. It's kind of one of those things that the company kind of wasn't too keen on before. A lot of trust issues with staff, I would imagine, and wanting people to be supervised properly in the office. But I think what we've kind of learned is that, it's something that we can do a lot more going forward. So as you say, it might create a bit more flexibility around people working from home in the future. We do have a policy in place at the minute where people do certain shifts from home, but I would imagine that will be extended going forward. In terms of when our guys, we would expect them to return to the office, we have we've got a test match starting in July, which we will need a member of staff to return to the office to score, because as I discussed earlier on, there's issues around latency and stuff like that. So we need that work to be done in the office. So we're expecting a member of staff to return, I think it's from the 8th of July. But going forward, I would imagine that's kind of how we'll do it. When we need people to go in, we'll send people into the office. But for the foreseeable future, I would imagine working from home will kind of be the majority of how people are kind of spending the time working. So we'll be flexible. We'll be working from home, but then going in if they have to.
I returned a couple of weeks ago, so the 3 that was continued working. There's another 4 or 5 on top of that. So it has been strange, but it's manageable. We've got enough people for the workload that's on, so it's just organising it between each other. We've been using Microsoft Teams to communicate each morning, set all the tasks out for everyone, making sure everyone's got enough to do. A lot of the time, there's a lot of downtime, as there's not as much live coverage on as usual. But with it coming to start up again, there's a lot more admin things, so squads to update and things like that. So it's getting a little bit better now. Yeah, financially, definitely. Obviously, the pandemic caused massive financial hits across every single department. You know, across our department, all sport was cancelled, and it's been like that in other companies, other parts of the company as well. So definitely financially, they're putting people on furlough. They'll have saved so much more money, and I think the CEO has recently said they're about flat with last year in terms of financial, just from the proactive savings they made by furloughing and pay cutting and things. So, yeah, the effects from COVID, I think, have been balanced out by the changes the company have made to kind of protect themselves, which they did need to do. And hopefully it means there'll be no job losses and things like that. And as more things pick up, it should get back to normal and on par and start making profits again.
It was more annoying because you look forward to it from a work point of view, because we'd be really busy and we'd be doing all sorts of different things, especially for the Olympics. And I was like, Danny Lambert tasked me in charge of organising that, so I've done all the groundwork, getting the schedules up to date and getting ready to send out. And then obviously they postponed it, but it would also be nice if there was on to watch it, obviously, with no one being able to do anything. I think that would have been a bit of a morale boost for everyone, but I can understand why they had to cancel it. And it's probably better that it is next year, because fingers crossed we'll be able to get a hold on whatever's happening.
Well, clearly when COVID first happened and everything got cancelled, there was this no live sport, but there was still a lot of sport to write about. On a daily basis, there was updates on the coronavirus. We had sports personalities hit with the COVID and their families, teams having to isolate and players having to isolate. And also it was a case of what do we do now for our customers? So at PA, we have a domestic wire, which is set contract for a lot of these customers. So we had to be quite creative, and we had a good team that was still left. Obviously, we had to furlough some people, like a lot of companies have had to do. But we had a team of reporters and subs left that got creative, and we started doing a few feature pieces, a lot of the on this day pieces. We did just daily social files, because we've got sports people doing, I think it was the football keepy-uppies with the toilet rolls and things like that, which off, and before you knew it, everybody was doing it and sending their own videos in. So we kept on doing that as a social file. So we were busy, despite there being no live sport. We were just keeping things turning over and having to come up with different ideas of doing things. So that's how we responded with that. Thankfully, it's all back up and running now, but we've still got some issues because we're not allowed to have as many people as like into the stadiums for the media. So we have to adapt there as well. So I think that's going to continue for a good few months, but hopefully towards the end of the year, they're looking at bringing some fans, certainly into the stadiums. And if we can get more media in there as well at some point, then that would be great. Yeah, definitely. Naturally, everybody will be disappointed. I think you're sometimes disappointed for the staff as well. We have staff going over to these events, particularly the Olympics, and we'll have people covering things, these tournaments for the first time in their time at PA. And it's I've spoken to quite a few people who have been there and done these tournaments over the years, and what I've experienced, it is hard work because it's the long days. But it's a fantastic experience. Likewise with the Euros, we have our dedicated home nation reporters who'll be covering the teams, and there's still a chance, isn't there, with the playoffs, that we could have quite a few home nations there. I think the two Irelands in the playoffs, I think Scotland might be as well. So there's a chance we could have good representation next year. I think fans looking forward to going there this year would have had maybe things booked in terms of accommodation and matches, etc. How that's going to happen next year, we don't know yet. But I suppose from a team point of view as well, you look at England, for example, it might give the chances of the likes of Foden and Greenwood and others to stake a claim next year who probably wouldn't have had a chance this year. So from that respect, it could be an interesting dilemma for a lot of the international coaches.
Life is slowly going back to normal, with sports and fans returning. People are heading back to the high street shopping or going for a catch-up with their friends at the pub. Dan Jefferson, PA Media.